Hello everyone, and welcome to the third Tempest Storm Wild Meta Snapshot of the Year of the Dragon. The Wild Meta continues to evolve, and the relevant decks of the format continue to shift. In our last installment, we highlighted a surge of aggressive decks as the driving force shaping the Wild Meta. But the meta has responded to the aggression with a resurgence of mid-range and anti-aggro strategies. Murloc Shaman joins Odd Paladin and Kingsbane Rogue at the top of the heap in Tier 1. And even Shaman and Reno Warlock come back to relevance in response. We also see new faces beginning to put up results on the Wild Ladder. Before we break down these developments, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with our Hearthstone content. Now let's get started with Tier 1. Odd Paladin and Kingsbane Rogue are no longer the only decks in Tier 1, but are now joined by Murloc Shaman as well. Tier 1 decks are all around powerful, and have good matchup spreads against most decks, and serve to keep the format in check. Odd Paladin remains king of the hill in this edition of our Tempest Storm Wild Meta Snapshot. This aggressive archetype dominates the board with cheap tokens, and uses buffs to turn them into threats, while defending its board with cards such as Darkshear Steward and Never Surrender to endure against board clears. Odd Paladin remains a powerhouse against Mage and Rogue, and requires dedicated anti-aggro tools or early game development to put up a fight. Another mainstay of Wild Tier 1 is Kingsbane Rogue. The blistering speed of the pirate package, matched with the relentless power of Kingsbane and his buffs, continues to make Rogue a force to be reckoned with on ladder. It continues to have a warping effect on the meta, with polarizing matchups against slow decks and combo decks, forcing many decks to adapt by playing cards like Galactic Crawler and Gluttonous Ooze in order to stand a chance. This breakdown's featured top legend list from Yami includes Lotheb and Leroy Jenkins as additional late-game finishers to push through heightened defenses and board clears. Murloc Shaman is a new face in Tier 1, as its play rate continues to climb and high legend players continue to tighten their play and refine their lists. Murloc Shaman floods the board with a dominating curve, includes a value engine to reload against removal, and includes powerful buffs to finish the game with massive damage. Gangplan's top legend list continues to define the archetype, going all in on Murloc synergies with little regard to anti-meta tech. The deck edges out other aggressive decks, but suffers against dedicated anti-aggro strategies. Tier 2 is seeing a shakeup as the Wild Ladder continues to evolve. Anti-aggro and mid-range strategies are becoming more popular in response to aggressive trends, with Big Priest and Jade Druid being joined by old favorites such as Reno Warlock and even Shaman. Tier 2 decks are strong and generally have good positioning against Tier 1, but have a weaker matchup spread in general. Tier 2 features 8 decks in this snapshot, but today we'll be taking a deeper look at a few of them. Big Priest remains the cornerstone of Tier 2, utilizing the powerhouse engine of Barnes, Shadow Essence, and Resurrection effects to generate big threats early. A lot of its recent successes can be attributed to the powerful removal effects Priest has to offer. Some have even begun teching in Excavated Evil and Shadowward Horror to combat early aggression. Corbet's high legend featured list is a benchmark for the archetype, combining anti-aggro tools with over-the-top threats, making it strong against Murloc Shaman and Odd Paladin, with Kingsbane Rogue and Exodia Mage being the deck's only true counters. Returning to Tier 2 is Reno Warlock, one of the classic defining archetypes of the Wild format, preying on aggressive decks with its removal cards and powerful healing. Reno Warlock also combines powerful combos and flexibility in a singleton package. This breakdown's featured high legend list from KSR is loaded with tech cards hand-picked to counter Tier 1, including Hungry Crab, Galactic Crawler, Gluttonous Ooze, and Despicable Dreadlord. Bloodreaver Gul'dan and N'Zoth the Corruptor fill out the deck's top end to finish games after the opponent's resources are exhausted. Jade Druid continues to be a Tier 2 staple as well, combining the power of Druid's armor gain and defensive tools with the inevitable long game of infinite Jade Idols. In a meta devoid of Skulking Geist, both fast aggro decks such as Odd Paladin and slow control decks such as Reno Warlock struggle against Vajades, but Vajade deck's lack of early pressure leaves it vulnerable to combo decks, and its limited large minion removal give it a rough matchup against Big Priest. Our featured legend list from Alex Strask demonstrates that Archmage Vargoth and Sunreaver Warmage from Rise of Shadows are now stable choices in the archetype, replacing Jade Behemoth and Io Blackpaw. Miracle Quest Mage is a new face to the snapshot, reflecting its status as a rising star in the meta. Magic Trick and Mana Cyclone from Rise of Shadows saw a lot of early experimentation, but recent developments spearheaded by Nightwalk's Rank 1 Legend list have cemented the archetype as a competitive force. The deck features loads of cheap spells, alongside Sorcerer's Apprentice, Flamewaker, and Stargazer Luna to swing the board and generate massive value with Elemental Evocation and Mana Cyclone. While it can do powerful things, the deck does heavily rely on random card generations, and can fall flat if it doesn't find the right cards for the situation. This can make it weak against aggro strategies, but it can prey on slower decks by closing out the game with Time Warp and Arcane Giants. The surge of aggressive strategies in the post-Rise meta has forced players to adapt by adjusting existing decks to fight harder for board in the early game, or by revisiting strategies that traditionally do well against aggro. In this environment, savvy players can stay ahead of the curve by playing a deck that has a plan against both aggro and anti-aggro decks. A recent example of this approach is the rebirth of Murloc Shaman. Popularized by Sipiwi94, this deck features plenty of removal, alongside a Corpseaker package featuring Ziliax and Walking Fountain to survive against aggro. Against control, the deck features value engines and the classic Doppelgangster and Evolve combo. If that's not enough, Shadowverse stacks tons of value with an oppressive board, usually adding additional copies of itself to the hand with Zola the Gorgon and Bog Slosher Battlecries. This combination of board management and solid late game win conditions give the deck good odds against both early game aggro and slow control decks. Just be careful against dedicated combo decks, as they can prove to be difficult for the Murloc Shaman to win against. In conclusion, the Wild Meta continues to develop and grow alongside the Year of the Dragon. The meta still features the staple Wild decks alongside returning classics, and even new archetypes are starting to appear. Wild has a wide variety of powerful and fun strategies, so even if your favorite archetype wasn't featured today, it may only be a matter of time before you see it again. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you think the Wild meta will end up next. Thanks for watching.